So, hello. It's Christine, the Beauty Pro podcast host and the Beauty Pro coach. I am here today with Miss Leisha Thompson. And
Hello.
hey, girl. And we're going to be talking about the traveling hairstylists.
hmm
Okay. I was looking at your website. Fill everybody in on what it is exactly that the traveling hairstylists do.
Okay, so here's my just a simple and short kind of thing because I'm sure we'll get into a lot of different topics. So I started the Traveling Hairstylist a little over a year ago, and this is a company that provides an alternative resource to hairstylists by experienced stylists to basically fill in for any and all kind of leaves. So maternity leaves, medical leaves, mental health leaves, all of the above. And we come in to basically help nurture your business, retain your clientele, and provide a source of income. So, this is just a resource that can be tapped into to just kind of give you ultimate peace of mind. And like I said, and be able to give you a little bit of income, cover rent, things like that. So, that's a little bit about what we do. We travel to you and help just kind of care for your business while you're gone.
Whoa. Okay. Wait a second. So, do you guys like, are you more geared towards like the independent stylists who like the suite owners or like salon owners that they're missing, their top stylist is on maternity leave or something? Like, how does
Actually, it can be either way. So I have covered for suite stylists. I've covered for booth renters that were in a team salon. I've also covered for a commission stylist too. And so it just depends on what exactly that is because obviously when I'm working with a suite stylist, it's very one-on-one. But if I'm working with like a booth renter commission stylist, then there's almost, your salon owner is also involved in that conversation. So it's very customizable.
that is so cool. And where are you at now? I have
So
so many
I
questions. I have so many
Yeah, I
questions.
know.
This is so cool. Like,
It's very different, and I know it's still kind of such a new concept, so I totally get it. But currently, I am covering a maternity leave in the Pacific Northwest, so I'm in Spokane, Washington. So yeah, I'm here for kind of the whole spring, pretty much.
oh my goodness. And so, how does that work as far as payment goes? Because a
Mm-hmm.
commission stylist, so a lot of them are like bi-weekly and they get like
Mm-hmm.
their product bonuses and all that kind of thing. So how does that work for you and for them? Like, how do you get paid?
Yeah. So basically, like I said, this is very customizable because everybody is slightly different. Everybody has a slightly different situation. And like I said, if depending on how you are normally paid, that structure can slightly change. And uh, in that case, if you're a commission stylist, it actually would be working on the pay more with your owner. But there's kind of two routes that I go about this. And one route is essentially like kind of a sublease. And that's just because some people might have a policy that helps retain like some income for them. And in that case, they typically can't show that they've made any income. So that's where we kind of go into a sublease contract. So I'm covering their rent, I'm covering their product expenses, and I am essentially just making that amount as a normal booth renter. The other route that we go is a daily rate. So we come up with a rate based upon what is like an average of basically what you're making, and factor in if we are doing like who's carrying for product, kind of everything above. And then we come up with that daily rate, and that is just what it is. It's just kind of a flat rate. So that is typically, if in a commission setting, that would kind of be worked out with the owner. So it'd be a slightly different pay structure than what that stylist might be. But this is just the way that kind of fits, I think, best because we're not there to take clients. We're not there to build a client base. We're purely there to be an extension of you to care for your clients while you're gone. So, yeah.
Whoa.
Mm.
This is so cool. Like, I kind of want to talk to some of your salon owners that you've worked with to
Oh,
see
yeah.
it like their side of the story too. Like, that is so
hmm
interesting. And so you're really just there to kind of feel like, not disrupt the client schedule and you're just
hmm
following the formulas, doing the things, and then you're like, okay, you're done by, and then you move on to the next date.
Yeah. Yeah, because one thing that I have found just through this is, you go, if you're on a maternity leave, medical leave, you're typically out for about, let's say 6, 8 weeks, 10 weeks, sometimes even 12 weeks.
Hmm.
And I think something that's been really interesting that I've gotten to learn is the other side of it, like your client's perspective of it and what they do, how they feel about like what might maybe is provided to them. And for a lot of them, it can also be kind of an uneasy time. Like obviously they want you to take care of you and do you. You've got to like you have to take that time, but it can be kind of tricky for them. I've heard some clients tell me with past leaves with their stylist that they often felt like they were kind of a burden to the other stylists that maybe they were referred to because that stylist wasn't looking to gain them as a client. Like maybe they were already full. And so it's like, I've heard some people say like how difficult it could be to get into somebody else's schedule of just another stylist in the salon that they were referred to. Or if it was they were referred to a whole other salon, then it's like they just have that little bit of like, I don't know, like their salon setup or like, so sometimes it can kind of be like uneasy for them too. So utilizing this service, we are coming to your space. The comfortability is already there for them because they are familiar with your space, they know the surroundings. There's already a like trust there and like a comfort there. So not only is this something that I think is really great for the stylist, but to continue to provide an experience that your client is already used to and with having the partnership of like we have your then any notes formulas things that we would need, we can guarantee that we're caring for your clients, so like there's no surprises when you get back and you're like, oh, now we have a color correction on our hands. But also it's just your clients feel yeah, your clients feel comfortable already. So that's kind of something I think that I really picked up on through this.
It is so okay. So, how did you even start this? Like, how did this idea come to you? Like, did you have this
Mhm.
happen to you? Like, how did tell me? Mhm.
So I I had a pretty great business. I'm from Ohio and I had a sweet business, but for a few years I had been feeling like I don't know, like there was just something more that I was supposed to do. And simultaneously I had some friend stylist who I had one who got in a really minor car accident. Wasn't super crazy, but it hit her shoulder and she was out of the salon. She was very established, had a beautiful business. She was out of the salon for 8 weeks. She tried to go back for 1 week, went back to her doctor, and they had to do another surgery. She had to be out for another 8 weeks. Yeah, so she was out for 4 months total with only 1 week back in the salon. And when she finally got to come back and like everything was finally restored, she lost nearly half her business. And it was like she was starting all over. It was just such a stressful time for her. So that was kind of something that was happening. I also had another friend who was talking to me, who's a stylist, about she was going on maternity leave and she just was talking to me about how she's like I just like she was in a suite and she's like nobody around me is really like available to take clients. I don't really know where to refer them to. I feel like I've got to pull like 3 4 different salons and I'm just kind of not sure about like she was just kind of venting to me a little bit about just like I don't know what to do and I feel like I'm just going to have to be okay with losing maybe more than I want to because I just don't know where to refer them and they're going to eventually find something. So while I'm hearing these stories, I am also someone who really loves to travel. So I've been trying to like, I know I've been trying to figure out this way. I'm like, how can I meld these things together? My passion for travel and my passion for hair. And I think that just somewhere in that mix, the idea kind of like dropped in on me. And I was trying to find what like if there was something like this out there. I'm like, it's basically like travel nurses, but like hairstylist edition. I'm like, does this exist? And I really couldn't find anything out there that even resembled this. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna start this. I'm not sure if it'll work out. Let me just give it a year. My husband and I and our animals, which hopefully you can't hear them in the background. We moved out of our property and into an RV. And I'm like, let's just take a year and let me see if I can make something out of it. And if I can't, then, whatever, we'll start over. If I can, then maybe I have something on my hands. And I very quickly found out how needed something like this was. So that's a little bit of like backstory about just where that came from.
That is so cool. So, what does your husband do now? Because he is like, it sounds like your ultimate support, right? So, like, what
Yes.
does he do for a living?
Yeah, I'm so grateful for my husband because he has fully supported me in this crazy idea and without seeing if it could actually, work. But he works for Amazon actually. So he's just transferred to warehouse to where I know. There's Amazon everywhere. You can't go wrong. So he just transfers to whatever warehouse a contract takes me to. So it's actually worked out very, very well, oddly enough.
Oh
We
my
didn't
God.
see that happening, but yeah.
No, and he probably has so much fun because he gets to
Hmm.
travel with his woman and your fur
Yeah.
babies and like you get to see everything. Oh my God,
Yeah.
girl. Okay. So, I don't know if this is like an appropriate question, but I feel like I have to ask it. So,
Yeah.
like, how much income have you made in the year doing this?
So so last year, all of like 2023 was my first full year entirely of doing this.
Mhm.
So, but it was also the first year of this business. So I will
Okay.
tell you, there were a lot of things that I really didn't know how to go about until I was just
Mhm.
in it. So I made, let's see, I made 40,000 last year, up like
Okay.
roughly just under that,
Okay.
which I'm not too like scared to like say numbers. But so that was not normally what I make, like I understood that I was going to be going into this first year taking like a pay cut more than likely because I had to kind of figure out what this looked like. And there were some things that I learned I did well, and there were some things I learned that I did not do well. So going into this year, and now that I've been able to get more traction under it and just more interest, I'm really kind of starting to learn more of like how the pricing can be and just different options with it. So I am projected to do a bit more this year. And I want to be able to keep like as I think as just demand grows for this, like just like in our businesses behind the chair, that's where we can see that increase. So it is still such a baby business. So it's not, at the point where I'm quite at six figures, but I see where that could be potential for me in the future. So it's a growing business for sure.
Absolutely. Like I'm just thinking of like all the instances where even in my salon,
Hmm.
um, if you've listened to the first episode, you know my story and like who I am and how I'm in partnership, business salon
Hmm.
ownership with my mom. And there have been times with her even where, you know, she doesn't have carpal tunnel, but her joints and everything's
Yeah.
starting to kind of give way. And just different salons in the area where we are that
Hmm.
they are the business, right? And so if you are
Hmm.
not there, you have nothing. So I'm really excited to see you grow in this in the future because there are so many possibilities, even with
Hmm.
aesthetics too, and getting more people. So do you see yourself growing with like a team of traveling hairstylists and maybe estheticians? Like,
Yeah, I definitely do. Because actually, currently, I'm at a point where I just booked my last contract of the year. So I actually can't fulfill anything else this year, which is exciting. But also, I'm like, okay, like and I do have one team member, who was starting, but not until the fall. So I am definitely in a space where I'm like, it is time. It's time to finally bring some more people on. I've really been able to like build this up and build the systems and the structure to get it to where it's at, to where now I can have a team. And I really want to be able to do it because this isn't like something I'm just doing in a region, a town. Like this is literally all throughout the whole country. I mean, I was back and forth across the country all last year, and I want this to be accessible to stylists from everywhere. Especially because there's a lot of states that don't have really any other kind of like paid family medical leave right now is only available in 11 states. So when you're independent, I know. And when you're independent, there's not a lot of other routes you can go that are not going to cost you more than what it's worth, unfortunately. But even with that, even if you have an income factor, there's still your clientele, And so there's different pieces of this to kind of care for. So yes, I'm definitely in a space where I would I want to bring some team members on, and I am kind of like actively looking for some of the right fits because, like I said, I am currently booked, but I am still definitely looking and getting requests. So yeah.
That is so, oh my God, I'm so excited for you. This is awesome.
Mm,
Okay. So now let's talk a little bit. The Beauty Pro podcast is all about self-care, self-love,
mm-hmm.
mental health. We talk about the real and raw stuff. So,
Yeah.
with all of this, I can only imagine that there is strain sometimes with you and your hubby. Maybe he wants to go East Coast or he doesn't want to move, and you are like, this is going to be great. Let's go. So, like, how do you deal with those kind of conflicts with your support system?
I I would say my husband truly is like my best friend and soulmate and one, and we are the best travel buddies together. I know some people can't always say that about their partner, but like again, I'm very, very grateful that not only my husband supports me, but like we travel because we're also living in an RV. We're in like a condensed space, and some people are like,
Right.
"How do you do that?"
Right. Like,
And
I
and
need
for
my
yeah,
space, girl. Like, bathroom and kitchen is where I'm at all the time. So,
yeah.
like,
So I don't know. I mean, I think we just really make it work. And I think that it's about taking the time, like intentional time with us together and outside of our surroundings, but then also like making sure we're still respecting. Like he kind of has his like nights, like he has he games, and so he has friends that he gets like online with, like every Friday night, like that's his night, like that's his like friend night. And then I have I get to kind of meet different people everywhere I go and like work with different salons. So I always try to prioritize even just my own time. So it's like I think it's just a matter of like really coming together and having to be very intentional, but also really respecting when you just need your own time and own little self-care and own, like tapping into other people as support. So, but I will say he makes it easy because we really work together very well and communicate very well in that sense. So,
that's awesome. So, like, with this, um, what I could ask you two different questions right now, but like, what is something that you feel is like a must trait for any stylist or even future estheticians are gonna need to do this kind of job?
hmm I think the number one trait is adaptability. Because here's the thing, like you were always working pretty much with like new clients, even though you have guidance around that and formulas, being able to adapt into different forms of communications, just like when we have a new client in our chair, but that's every client that you're doing. That's so important, but also adapting to even just the salon space, the salon culture, the salon team. And I think that's really exciting. I love like the change of that
Mm.
and being able to kind of like go into the shifts. But for some people, that may not be their thing. And I completely respect that. We all have our things. And if you're someone who isn't super into change, that probably wouldn't be for you. But being adaptable, I think, is the most important trait I could say as far as like being a part of the team because there's just so many things that I think are similar going from salons to salons, but there's always that little, everybody has their own little uniqueness about it, about maybe the client experience, you being adaptable with different color lines, different product lines, which
Mhm.
again, it's really fun to be able to try things that maybe you haven't before, but making sure that you obviously like really understand the basis of that line so that you're working with it still with a knowledge of using it. So adaptability for sure. I think also just flexibility can be an important one, which kind of almost goes into adaptability. But yeah, that's definitely number one.
Okay. What do you've worked with a lot of different teams and stylists and products and all of that. So, how does that work with your schedule, right? Like, do you ever get
Mhm.
time off, or are you there just filling in for these people the way that they would do it, but just with your face enhanced?
So kind of yes and no. As I've been doing this, I find that for people, typically we're working on about 75% of their clients because there's always going to be about 20 to 25% of your clients that are diehard you. They're not going to
Mm,
go to anywhere. They will wait a year for you if that's like how long it
yeah.
takes. So we're typically working with just slightly under your like total client account. And then it's also a matter of like, of your clients, who is more high maintenance, who's more low maintenance, like who is going to be seeking these services? Are there clients that typically go a few months where maybe they you just saw them and they're not going to be ready until you're back again? So when we kind of consider that, typically I find that if a client or if a stylist is typically working 4 days a week, the schedule that works best for us is maybe like 3 days. Like almost we condense just slightly in the hours to account for having full books on our ends, especially if we're on a daily rate, then we want it to be beneficial and have a full set day, but also for you. So you're not paying for like, for more than what's really needed. So I often typically I'm working about a 3 day work week. There's been a couple times I've worked 4 days, but I think coming into this, you still have some boundaries. Like, so for me, I don't work Sunday or Mondays. Like those are just my days off.
Mm-hmm.
And I still respect that boundary coming into this. I'm very flexible with the rest of my days. So that still always allows me to have time off. And then in some cases, like I said, if I'm working 3 days a week, I still kind of have some time to work on my like admin stuff, but then it still gives me time to explore because I think that's important too. Like coming into this position, you probably are seeking some experience and seeking to see some different areas. So there's definitely, I think you definitely can find the balance to do both.
Where is your most popular state? Like, where are
I've
people finding you
actually
most?
I've had a lot of requests come in from California lately. So I'm going to be there for quite a while, pretty much the rest of the year once June hits. Yeah, so that was kind of interesting because
Wow.
I didn't have any California last year, but I started in Arizona, so I don't know if that kind of like, led into that. So that's been the area that I've had the most requests in recently. Yeah.
Where do you want to go most?
I mean, I love mountains. So anywhere that I
Okay.
get to go that has mountains, that is like my piece. And I've actually been officially to all 50 states now. So I think everywhere is kind of exciting because I get
Okay.
to go to it again and get to like re-experience maybe areas that I would have never thought to go to. So I think that's what's kind of fun too, is like you kind of never know where you might end up, like what cool little town you're
Right.
in or whichever. Yeah.
Okay, what if, all right, so you have an RV
Hmm.
and obviously you can't drive to Hawaii or Guam
Yeah.
or like Puerto Rico or anything like that. So if you get a call from those places, how does that work out for you with, obviously your boundaries and everything?
Yeah. So right now, I can only really service the 48 states just because of
Okay.
that. I have to
Yeah.
kind of, I think as we grow and there could be more people, I would love to have someone who's maybe like actually in Hawaii and they can kind
Yeah.
of like maybe service all the islands, and go back and
Yeah.
forth. Or, if an opportunity comes up and I'm like, well, I want to go to Hawaii. You never know. But
Yeah.
but right now, I can't quite guarantee anything, so
Okay.
I have to kind of like at least respect that and be like, okay, like we're focusing on the 48 pretty much. So, but I think in the future that could definitely be there. I could see that growing into that.
That is so cool. Okay. So what we're talking about all these solutions.
Yeah.
This business model is solutions oriented, right? It sounds
Mm-hmm.
like you work with them and you have the light at the end of the tunnel. So
Yeah.
let's talk about some struggles now, if you don't mind.
Mm-hmm.
So like,
Yeah.
what do you think was your biggest struggle with the traveling hairstylist?
I think at first it would really was just that it I didn't have really any blueprint to go off of or be inspired by or shift with. Everything that has happened with this has been truly from just a place of trust and
Hmm.
faith, knowing that it could not go well. So like I said, starting this, there were questions I had about like, I don't know how this will quite work, or I don't know how that would be, or like even when it just comes to pricing, like I told you, I had no idea how to even like try to base pricing because you're working with so many different
Hmm.
locations where
Hmm.
price of living is different. You're working with so many different specialties, um, structures. Like if I kept trying to find this like perfect pricing formula, and I'm like, I think those were the moments where I was like, this actually needs to be very customizable. Like we have this industry has so many routes you can go and so many opportunities that like this needs to reflect that as well. So I think just really with the struggle, it really was just that. Is really kind of going in with blind faith and trusting that this was going to work out the way that it needed to, but there was a lot of struggles as far as like trying to just know where to even start and
Hmm.
trying to build it from there. Um, and there's definitely, I think anything that you start can be hard because those moments that you maybe have little slumps or maybe you haven't gotten a request for a while, that doubt starts to creep in. And I think really just being aware of where you're at mindset
Hmm.
wise and just staying focused on like why, staying focused on why I was doing what I was doing and the purpose I was serving and knowing that I was here to help people in a time where there's really not a lot of other places to turn. That's really what kept driving me forward. So there's a couple of struggles there actually.
That's
So,
okay. That's okay. And I know like that can even go, you basically are the business, so those struggles are also personal too,
hmm
you know?
yeah.
So I get that. So I think this is a question that maybe a lot of our listeners are probably dying for me to ask, right? But where do your services start? And do these people pay for you to travel to them? Like, are they paying for well, you have an RV, so I guess not. But
hmm
do they, where does the price point start? I know it's customizable.
It is customizable. So the one option as far as like subleasing, that there's not exactly like a price off the hand, you know what I mean? That's a little bit of a different like contractual agreement. As far as the daily rates, right now I start at 280. And that definitely can change just based upon like product coverage, location and specialty. Like those are usually like the three factors that we like, because I always start off talking with people on like a discovery call. So
Mhm.
nobody is like indebted if they like fill out a request form. I there's things that I want to be able to learn from them and like they need to learn from me to figure out if this is the path that they need to go on and make sure that it's beneficial for them. So once we can kind of dive into some of those things, I always leave those discovery calls with like, this is your price. So sleep on it, think about it, figure out maybe needs to happen if you want to move forward with that. So that's just where this currently, as of, March that we're filming this,
Yeah,
that's where that starts off at. Um, but there's a few factors that can slightly
sure.
change that.
Sure, sure. What's a common myth that you get when you tell people about what it is that you do?
Oh, that's a tricky one. I think when I tell people what I do, they really just don't even like a lot of people are like, I don't, what do you mean? Like you got to explain this to me a little bit. So
Like, wait,
I
what?
think I think I'm often met with just confusion more than I am like necessarily a myth because it's just and like I think the biggest way I really can start off is like, okay, travel nursing, but hairstylist. Think of okay, like here's how we can start to think about this, shift. But I do think that's like really kind of fun to me because it reminds me of just how I think innovative this
Yeah.
company is and the idea is. But I think with myths necessarily to go, I guess, in that route is there's always a lot of like question around or kind of uncertainty around like licensing because that is kind of a
Mm,
tricky part of it. But
yeah.
I think a lot of people often are like, oh, like how do you even kind of like work that out? Because there's probably so many states that you probably have a hard time getting licensing. And in some aspects that can be kind of true. But again, because the traveling hairstylist, like the team, is we're experienced. Like this isn't for new stylists out of school. So because of experience and just time behind the chair, that actually really helps you out when it comes to like reciprocity and
Mm.
endorsement of licenses in other states. Do some states take their time? And yes. Do some states still require me to take an online written test? I've had a couple. But for the most part, I've had a very seamless time with most states as far as like getting my licensing through, like I said, either reciprocity and endorsement. And because I also have 13 years behind the chair, that really helps that. So
So how many licenses do you have now?
I am up to, I'm working on my ninth one. So I still have a lot to get, but I have kind of like a sheet of all the licensing and like the process and how long it can take. And I'm trying to track that on my own time too.
Yeah.
So that's been, yeah, kind of interesting, but so far I only have nine. So I still have a bit more to go.
Okay, okay, all right. So, how do you nourish yourself on your
Hmm.
days that you're not in the salon being somebody's clone?
Yeah. I think, and this is why I love to go in places that have mountains because that is definitely my like my space, my peace. So like taking the time to just like hike, I love to be in nature. I love just like that's quiet for me. Like I don't need to fill, with anything.
Mm,
That is definitely something that really like nourishes me, and just is like a good self-care for me and kind of resets me. And I think a little bit of even just like the exploration factor really fuels me too because I love to travel. Definitely have a wanderlust soul. So those things, like the travel aspect, which to me is like the reward of what I do and why I even decided to do that. It's kind of like I went into this with being able to give myself something that I could constantly nourish myself with. And that was
mm,
like the exploration of just traveling.
I love it. Okay, so here's a fun one. What
Okay.
insults have you ever gotten that you are currently so proud of?
Insults?
Yes.
Okay.
I love this
Um,
question so much.
oh my gosh. I mean, I feel like always had like a lot of the hairstylists, we always hear just the insults of just like, oh, so when are you gonna get a real job? I think I've had I've had one guy, and it was an older guy, of course, that I was like doing while I was doing this and kind of explaining his idea and or my idea to him. And I think he took it as like this was just fun for me, which okay, yes
I-
it is, but I think he was kind of like, so, when do you plan to like, move back and maybe just do like you start your own salon and once you're done traveling. And I'm like, no, 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 this is like literally my right purpose. This is my role. Like I have something I'm like fulfilling here. And like there's a reason why I'm here doing your hair right now because your stylist is on a medical leave. And I feel like he just didn't get that. Like he just thought this was like some fun hobby I was doing just because, and I don't know. So it was like an indirect kind of maybe insult, but to
Uh-huh.
me, I was like I'm like I can still do what I do, love it, and have fun. That's kind of the point, right? Like we need to have that in
Yeah.
life.
That's
So
so
yeah.
funny because yeah, a lot of the older generation, and I tell this to my own
Mm,
staff too, like, and to classes, like the older generation, they have this such a misconception about the beauty and barber
mm-hmm.
industry,
I
right?
know.
They think we're just playing Barbies all day.
Yeah.
This isn't a real job. There's you cannot make six figures out of this. You cannot live comfortably. Like, when are you gonna
Mm-hmm.
grow up? You know? And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, no, that's not it.
I know. I
Like at
know.
all. Like not even close. But
No.
okay. So what's an area that no one agrees with you about? It could be professional or personal, but they just
Okay.
don't agree.
Yeah. Um, I I think almost like a little bit of what I'm doing is like I've always been this kind of person that if you are not happy where you're at, I think sometimes risk has to happen
Mm.
to find maybe a joy or purpose. And I think that for some people, like it's very easy to get kind of scared by that or think that you can kind of like, no, I can find like another, way around that or whatever. Um, but I think getting complacent and being afraid of risk can actually be a a negative thing sometimes. And
Mhm.
I think I definitely really try to live my life where if I feel like I'm not fulfilled, like I have control every day I wake up. I can make choices and decisions that can fulfill me. And sometimes those have to be big ones, and sometimes it has to be risky ones. And I think I've definitely learned that those have never steered me wrong. So yeah, I would think something along those lines.
I love it. I love that. Okay. So, like that older client that you had, and maybe
hmm
somebody else that you have encountered, but what is something that you have learned as a beauty professional that you wish like that client understood it, or like a lawyer or a nurse,
Mm-hmm.
mailman even would understand that you have mastered or learned being in this industry?
I think honestly, just how freaking brilliant
Mm.
so many of us are in this industry. I really don't know that people like get that sometimes. And
Mhm.
I that's something like we have such creative thinking minds that often turns into so many just brilliant ideas and how we build our businesses and just the things that people can accomplish in our industry. Like I know we have such a unicorn industry, but it's often because like we have so many opportunities that not a lot of other industries have, and most of those opportunities started with somebody paving the way of them from some brilliant stylist who
Mhm.
just took a chance. And I think if people could just really get like how creatively brilliant a lot of us really are, like, and just give us the credit of that, like it's amazing. I just know so many amazing people in this industry and the things that like they come up with and do and create, and we do it all ourselves a lot of the times. Not that I always recommend that, you sometimes need to delegate,
Yeah.
but but it's just like it's crazy. We're just like a one working show, and it's crazy just some of the things we come up with. I don't know. It just amazes me all the time.
Oh my God. Okay, so how do you how can our listener like get in contact with you so that they can be on the traveling hairstylist team? Like what do they need to bring
Yeah.
to you? How can they be a part of this? Is it a part-time thing, full-time thing? Like how does it work? And how can they
So
reach out?
yeah, yeah. So right now I am looking for another part-time contractor. And it's actually a really simple process. You can actually on my website, thetravelinghairstylist.com, I have a join the team page. And there's just a form, like an inquiry form you can fill out. It's just a little bit about you and kind of what you're looking for. And then we just hop on a call and kind of discuss that, see if like I kind of present, the details, and we kind of see if that feels like a good fit for both of us. But obviously, it is somebody, like I said, that would really be looking for something flexible part-time because contracts can come in from a lot of different places. So I always like to add buffer time before and after any
Mm,
contract to allow for, you know, us to get like settled in, get to the area. I think also like having some time for you to possibly be able to shadow that stylist before you start with them, just for like a few
mm,
hours even, can be really insightful just to see how they kind of work. There's some instances where that doesn't work, like typically medical leaves, like
mm,
emergency medical leaves. But there's still a lot of communication that can happen that can help build out, like, what that client is used to from the moment they walk through the door to when they leave. So yeah, I always like to have kind of buffer time, like to get prep before, but then also afterwards so that you can kind of like have a little bit of if you need a like digest time to kind of like leave, or if there's any, I always like to leave a little bit of time just in case there's anything that I really wanted to see in the area that I didn't get to, and I'm like,
yeah.
okay, I'll do it at the end. So yeah, so you can find that on the join the team page on the traveling hairstylist.
Okay. And that's the handle is at the traveling hairstylist.
Yes,
Okay,
yeah, on the
cool. We'll
website. Yeah,
we'll have the links in the show notes too, but I just like to
yeah.
verbalize it. So finally, what is one question you wish I would have asked, and how would you have answered?
I think a question is what are all the ways that this service can work for people? Because there is a couple ways that I have found kind of that I didn't think of in the beginning, but then kind of going in through it, I was like, okay, this was something that could kind of work. Like, I think really just like, who can this be for?
Mhm.
And there's really a lot of ways that that can go because we obviously think of like maternity leaves and medical leaves. That's, right off. But something else too that I think we often don't think about, and I think this is very like relevant to just your audience, is like mental health leaves.
Mm.
And as creatives in this industry, like I was saying earlier, we actually have some of the highest percentage of going through anxiety, depression, mood disorders. We also are an industry that is made up of a lot of women. So going through just even like hormone issue, like a lot of that plays into your mental health so much. And I have, I had my own experience where, I had some things I was going through. And for me in that time, I would have given anything to just have somebody come in and just give me like a month, just a month to take care of some things that I need to do to take care of myself. So I think that's really something that this can be worked for very well for people that we don't think of at first. And, and I think unfortunately it's still a stigma that we're getting out of a little bit of just like mental health and caring for ourselves, not only physically, but this can be for mentally. I think another really unique way that I have found that this can work, and it's a little bit different, but for areas that see high tourism,
Mhm.
um, where you have a lot of temporary clients that come into your salon or like the snowbirds or things like that,
Uh-huh.
but you don't want to have temporary clients go with full-time stylists, like that is something too that can be really insightful to use is like bring a temporary stylist in for these temporary clients, keep the full-time clients with your full-time stylist, and you kind of have a perfect match there. So I think that's another way that this can be used because I actually did a little bit of this and this is how I discovered I'm like, oh my God, this is like a perfect route to use the traveling hairstylist for.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's kind of another cool and just kind of unique way that I think this service can be really great for some salons or stylists. So yeah, those were just my last little thoughts there.
That's fine. It's totally cool. Oh my goodness, Alicia, this is so cool. I am so excited to be a little part of your growth journey with this
Yes.
episode in this podcast. I am so excited to tell everybody about this. So many ideas going through my mind, and it's true. Like we have, as creatives, like we c- we come up with some cool stuff
I
as
know, we really do.
I mean, like legit. So, thank you so much for being on here. I'm gonna
Oh
tell
my gosh.
everybody.
Thank you so much. I just appreciate your support and the conversation. And yeah, I'm so grateful to be here with you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So, I will talk to you soon, and
Yes.
I'll make sure everybody knows about the traveling hairstylist.
Thank you.